Hello, Internet. I'm back here, I think, for the very final video that has anything to do with woodworking. And really, this one today doesn't have anything to do with woodworking. It's more of power tools. And I tried to maintain everything out there in the shop as hand tools. But there were a couple of things, well, I got 3 things that eventually fell into the power tool range. And this was one of them today. I didn't use them all that much. I think it was more nostalgia as far as why I got them. But one of them was called a Radial Arm Saw. And as a 7th grader, what was I, 13 years old? As a 7th grader, I remember being in shop class, and the teacher was taking us around and introducing us to all the different power tools that were in there. And the Radial Arm Saw was one that just amazed me. And what it was, if you don't know what a Radial Arm Saw is, picture a circular saw, like a chop saw, but it's up off the table, and there's this long arm that comes out toward you, and it has a handle on it, and you put your stock down on the bench to the mark, and then grab the handle. We'll turn it on, grab the handle, and then just pull it back and return it to where it came from. And it made a nice, clean cross cut on that stock that you were cutting. And for some reason, that just amazed me when I watched him do that. And I wanted to create a project where I got to use that thing. And he said, you got to make sure that you don't put any fingers down there, because you'll be walking out of here without them if you're not careful. So shop safety was always an issue. So I got to looking in the paper. I believe this was around 2013. No, it wasn't the paper. I believe it was online. Was it Craigslist? I don't remember where it was. It had to have been. But somebody put an advertisement in a paper, said that they had a Radial Arm Saw for sale. Not in very good condition. And I thought, well, let's go take a look at it. So I drove for about 45 minutes and got to the location. And a lot of people around here will have like those big 18-wheeler containers. They'll buy them and put them on the property just to store stuff in. I guess it beats building a barn. And we walked down to this area, and he opened up the doors on that container. And I saw it sitting back in there, and it looked a little grim. And I kind of gave it the once over, and I asked him, I said, how much you wanting for it? He said, I'll take 85. I said, I'll give you 65. He said, done. So I should have said 50. I should have said 25, because, what was he going to do? Just continue to leave it in there? So it was about 400 pounds. Got it into the truck. I had a Ford Ranger at the time. Got it into the truck, brought it back home, and I set it down out there in the garage and looked at it, and it ran. The electrical was good on it. That was all functioning as it should, but the body out there in that container, and it was moist, there was some serious rust issues. So I thought, I'm going to redo this. I'm going to refurbish this Radial Arm Saw. So I got to work on that. And as with the dovetail pictures, I took a picture of each step. I don't think I have as many pictures as I did on the dovetails, but I documented each step. And as I had done before, I'll go to the pictures here, and hopefully I can leave enough time to where I can say everything I need to say before it switches over to the next picture. All right. So with that being said, let's see how the restoration went. I got the Radial Arm Saw home, unloaded it, and then I took a wire brush and spent about an hour scrubbing it down. And there was a lot of gunk and loose paint and rust that was on this. So I got everything that could be easily scraped off in that hour, and this is what it looked like at that point. I then went to the bottom of it, the base, and the base is really where there was a lot of rust. I put liquid wrench on the bolts because I was going to disassemble everything, and overnight those bolts were still froze on there, so it took quite a while to eventually get those bolts off. The interior of the cabinet had this piece of plywood that was really smelly and moldy, so I just got rid of it. And again, look at the rust that was down there at the bottom. This is what the front of the cabinet looks like. I guess this was number 142 of the fleet of radial arm saws that they had. Looking at the side of it, the side also shows a lot of rust down toward the bottom, as well as this back view. That board that you see there attaching the top and the bottom actually didn't attach anything. I do not know what the purpose of that board was. I took it off and things worked fine without it. I got all the top components disassembled and laid out. All of the bolts from that top assembly went into appropriate labeled cans there that you see on that back table. The significant amount of weight in this object was that cast iron arm that you see sitting down at the lower left. That thing weighed a ton. I was eventually able to get those bolts loosened on that base down toward the feet, and all of the parts that I could disassemble off of that, I went ahead and did that. Then it was time to address the rust. All right, let me talk about that rust. I did not just take a wire brush and go out there and just brush off as much as I could, because that wouldn't solve the problem. That just gets rid of the surface rust. There's still rust down there. So what I decided to do is attack it on the chemical level. I did go out and brush off as much of that rust as I could, and then I got a material called OSPHO, O-S-P-H-O. And what OSPHO is, it's phosphoric acid. And if it's a liquid, and if you take that phosphoric acid and brush it on, I can't remember exactly how I applied it. I'm pretty sure I probably did brush it on. But the rust, which has a chemical formula of Fe2O3, when you brush on that phosphoric acid has it's hydrogen, like I think it's H3PO4. The phosphorus in that phosphoric acid goes over and sticks its nose and attaches itself into that rust molecule. And it's not rust anymore. It becomes iron phosphate, a completely different compound. And if you're thinking, well, how can these things just make something completely brand new? Well, think about the gas that you're breathing out right now. Carbon dioxide, CO2. 2 oxygens on 1 carbon. That's the gas that we're all breathing out, and it's what the plants take in. If you get rid of one of those oxygens, if you just got C and O, that's called carbon monoxide. That'll kill you. So one little atom can make the difference. Think of water, H2O. If you add one more atom of oxygen to it and you get H2O2, you don't have water anymore. Just by adding one more atom, you now have hydrogen peroxide. So that's the difference that atoms can make and elements can make when they join. So when that phosphoric acid joined with that rust molecule, it changed it on the molecular level completely. So it's not rust anymore. It's not going to be that red-orange color. You're going to get the iron phosphate it's a black color. It's a very hard, durable black material, and that's what you're going to be seeing coming up here next. This was the cross piece that was down at the bottom toward the feet. It's where I had those rusted bolts that was hard to come off. This was that piece that was just full of rust, and everything that was rust is now iron phosphate, that black material. Here you see some of the other components that are sitting on some plastic that I had treated with the OSPHO. And to this day, when I go out into the garage, some of that liquid got underneath the plastic and left an imprint out there. And I always think back to this day whenever I see that imprint out there. I gave a quick sanding to all of the surfaces that had the rust to kind of smooth them out, and then it was time to figure out what color do I want to paint it. I don't want to paint it that bluish color that it already had, so I went to something a little more neutral, this cream color, and I think I really like that cream color better than the blue. I put a deck on it made from MDF board and had to cut the corners off again so they wouldn't be jabbing somebody when you walk by. I also put a rolling base on this. Being almost 400 pounds, I wanted to be able to move it around easy. So that was the Radial Arm Saw. I think I got more enjoyment out of refurbishing it and getting it back to almost 100%, functionality than I actually used it. I did use it a few times there toward the end, but not a lot. That MDF top that was on there, I remember I had to cut off the edges of those because they were sticking out just a little bit too far that I could barely get my truck into the garage. That was the issue I was having. I was starting to collect so much stuff out there that I was having difficulties making sure that the truck was able to squeeze in. And really, if you got a garage, I hope your vehicle is in it and not just a garage packed to the rafters with just crap. Okay, I'm getting off track here. Yeah, but I didn't use it very much. I did not use that Radial Arm Saw very much at all. And there, when, again, Dixie needed, I needed to get the money together for her. That was one of the first things that sold. And I don't even want to say how much I sold it for. It definitely underpriced. Definitely was underpriced. So that was the Radial Arm Saw. If I think of something else woodworking related, I might pop something in here later on down the road. All right, I'll see you.